it's Heath here from pickinglessons.com. The Trip to Sligo, it's such a pretty tune. We're going to learn a fingerstyle arrangement in this lesson. In a moment we're going to take a look at the first variation of part A. But if you head over to pickinglessons.com, you're able to grab the tab that we're working from. You'll also be able to get the next part of this lesson where we break down part B of the first variation and then part A and B of the second variation as well. So pickinglessons.com. Alright, let's jump on into a slow playthrough of part A, the first variation. Then we'll break it down, talk about some of the techniques, talk about the key and capo position and all that business. 1 and 2 and Okay, so there's part A nice and slow, the first variation. We are capoed up at fret 4 and that's going to put us in the key of G sharp minor. You could play this anywhere you like, E minor with no capo as the chieftains recorded it, or you can pick your place on the guitar. There's a number of keys you hear this in. I've chosen G sharp minor purely because of the way the notes start to sing and they really respond nicely on this particular guitar anyway, so you might want to experiment, but it is kind of nice hearing it up the neck rather than the deeper tones. Some of the melody gets a little bit lost. So these notes that we find here using our E minor shapes, capoed at fret 4, gives us G sharp minor. We're in 6/8 time, so it's a jig, 2 quarter note pulses to the measure, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a. Our finger style that we're using, basically our thumb is going to play the lower notes and we use a combination of our fingers depending on if it's more of an arpeggio like in the first measure, where you might have one finger on each string, or you might have a melody where there's more notes on the one string, and you're going to use those fingers alternating there, and that works really nicely. There's a bit of a guide in the tablature, so keep an eye on that. But really, this is not a basic fingerstyle piece, so it's more advanced, so you've already fingerpicked before, I'm assuming, so you can kind of guide yourself through your fingers, but just keep in mind, it's not really going to be one structure. Sometimes there are melody notes all on the one string, other times it's more of an arpeggio type passage, so you'll find each finger perhaps takes its own string to play that. Let's have a look at these measures in part 8 and I'll just guide you through some finger choices. So starting off with our first finger there and our thumb, ring, middle, index, thumb. Just a nice little arpeggio, one finger per string, thumb, index, middle, ring. So thumb, finishing with the thumb, each finger has its own string there. The rhythm there, watch the quarter note, 1 and 2 and Okay, that's first rhythm example as well. We find that in the second measure. Here, make sure you've got the second finger ready, first finger and third finger there for the F sharp before we pull off. And again, just a little arpeggio rundown, so thumb, middle, index, thumb to pull off. Third bar is the same as the first. Now here, this melody sort of consists of just the highest strings. You could just use your fingers sort of alternating between there. You could use your thumb on string 3 and then alternate on string 1. So there are options. I guess that's what I'm getting at. There are options and feel free to experiment with that. Again, there is the guide and the tablature if you're getting a little lost and you want something to stick to. That rhythm there, 1 and 2 and measure 5. This nice little cascading descending run here. Single string to start with, so alternating fingers. Then we're running down a bit of a floating passage there, so we can use our a finger and a thumb and a finger. Take your pick, index or middle. Now this measure here, measure 6, is really interesting. What we're going to find here is perhaps you go thumb, finger, thumb. You can use fingers if you like. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to stop mentioning that because you can just follow along there. But what we're doing here is going to tap in on that third finger there on fret 4. So we're just sort of tapping in the left hand. So we're going to have... So there's a couple of these marked out in the tablature and there is a T symbol with a circle. So that's your left hand tap. To to the pull off there. So all eighth notes, 1 and tap and thumb coming in there before the pull off. So there is a couple of those throughout the notation as we progress through the music. One more time, measure 6. Okay, now these final 2 measures before we hit the repeat. Let's tackle them as one because our hand position here, our left hand is really important. We're going to hammer on to that 3rd finger and then we're going to shift. As we play the open 3rd string, we're going to shift over to fret 7 with finger 3. So we have this. So a really smooth transition there, using that open string as our time to transition up the neck. Then to the open B string, and our 1st finger comes in on that C note there, well, C relative to the capo with our 1st finger. Nice little floating passage. Then we're going to come back down in a very similar way. Again, 3rd and 1st fingers at the ready. So measures 7 and 8. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. Thumb on the end there is fine. That's a really pretty little run there on the end. A nice little floating passage. So take your time getting to know the melody. So this part A is really the melody. The 2nd variation, we start to bring in some lower bass notes to feel out some of our accompaniment. But this is sort of the basic melody there, using our fingers as we go. So watch the rhythm, watch your left hand finger choice. We're really playing out of position 2. Again, it's in the tablature. And your right hand, stick with what you know. If you've been a fingerstyle player for a while, stick with what you know. But there are some guides in the tab. Couple of fingers on 1 string, otherwise you might have an arpeggio with 3 fingers, thumb on the lower notes. That's it. That's really all you need to worry about. The left hand part, the left hand transitions towards the end are really important, so make sure you're working on those. Just so it's nice and smooth, because it does sound really smooth because of all those open strings through that floating technique. But really anticipate the transition there of your hand position. Okay, so in the next part of this lesson, if you head to pickinglessons.com, we'll have a look at part B of the 1st variation. Then you'll also find part A and B of the variations where we start to include some lower bass notes in our accompaniment. You'll get the tablature there as well, plus all the other lessons there at pickinglessons.com. Head on over and I'll see you there.